Age of Conan is a game that I learned about, like many others have, during Fantasy Flight Christmas sales. Around Christmas the game was always offered by Fantasy Flight for very low prices, which of course is a double-edged sword, because that also is not good advertisement for a game. One wonders, why do you have to do that? Maybe that's not such a good game. And since I also had not heard about the game from other sources, I never really was all that curious about it. Then recently Ares Publishing contacted me and they asked me if I would be interested in taking a look at the game, because they were going to come out with an expansion for the game and they were going to put it on Kickstarter. So I thought, nah, what the heck, I'll give it a try. They sent me a review copy, and so I finally got a chance of playing Age of Conan. This is a fantasy game, pretty much a war game, with also a lot of other mechanics around it to simulate political, economic elements, civilization elements, adventure elements. It is a game for 2 to 4 players, where the players control provinces that are trying to turn into empires. So the players are trying to extend their initial territories by conquering other lands, by forming alliances with local princes, and also by interacting with Conan. This is Age of Conan. You're not Conan, you're a politician, a ruler of one of these other empires, and you have to deal with the fact that there is a Conan going around the land and breaking havoc wherever he goes. We know Conan, we know his personality, his public personality, and his tendency to always keep himself busy with adventures, monsters to slay, women to seduce. So Conan is a factor, and the players try to interact with him by forming temporary alliances with him. So yes, Conan may temporarily side with you in the game, but do not count on him being on your side for the entire game, because you will often switch alliances. So in one turn he may fight along you in a battle, next turn he may try to cut off your head and use your skull as a mug. Anyway, let's take a look at the game and see how the game works. Here you have a general overview of the board. It is a mounted board and looks pretty nice. It shows the area where the conflicts that are the core of the game will take place. It is divided in 4 main regions. One is here in the south, one is in the east, one in the center, and one in the north. The regions are indicated by different colors. Each region has a special region which is the home base of one of the players. Stygia, Sturan, Aquilonia, and Hyperbole. I know it's not Hyperbole, but that's my variant. And these are the home bases of the players. With 4 players you will use all home bases and the entire map. With less players you use only part of the map. Home bases are where the players place their initial pieces, and starting from there they start expanding into provinces. The map is divided into provinces, as you can see. But let's have a closer look so you can see better. In this game you cannot be Conan, get over it, that's how it is, but Conan is around, and during the game he will be moving on the board back and forth like a maniac trying to accomplish his objectives. He always starts here, and then you have a deck of cards representing the objectives that Conan is trying to accomplish. At the beginning of the game you draw 4 cards from this deck to form a mini deck. You place the 4-card mini deck there, and then you reveal the first card, you place it there. The card tells you where Conan is trying to go currently. For example, in this mission he wants to go to Corinthia, and you place this marker here in his target region. Then there is a number here in the bottom right corner. That is the number of adventure tokens that will be included in that adventure. Adventure tokens are these guys here. There are a lot, and you need to draw them randomly throughout the game. You will probably want to add a bag such as this one to the game. This is a bag that I've added that is not included in the game. So you draw a number of adventure tokens equal to the one indicated on the card, and you place them there in that in that area there. The tokens have a numerical value, a symbol, which can be women, treasure, or monsters, and resources that the adventure token can give you. At the beginning of each adventure, players will bid to see who will control Conan. Yes, players sort of create temporary alliances with Conan, trying to influence him and to get advantage from what he does. Now, in the game, there are these adventure cards, which can be used for a lot of advantages. When you're bidding for Conan, you only look at the top right corner. This is the value that you're interested in right now. When you're bidding for Conan, each player draws a strategy card from this deck, then chooses a card, secretly commits to that card. Also, each player has a set of numerical tokens, and then the player chooses one, secretly places it there. Once every player has selected a card and a token, the selections are revealed. You total the number of the token with the number of the card. In this case, that would be a 9, and that is how much that player has bidded for that selection, for that adventure. The player with the highest total receives the Conan player, and for the current adventure, that player will have the Conan player card and will be the Conan player. When you are the Conan player, you have several advantages. At the beginning of your turn, you can move Conan. Now, if you move him closer to the objective where he's trying to go, you receive an adventure token. And you can choose to add it to your pool of adventure tokens, so you can discard it for the advantage printed in the bottom right corner. Very flexible resources the adventure tokens are. In this case, I could trade this for a gold, or I could, if I receive this one, discard it for a sorcery. Sorcery tokens can be used to get rerolls during gameplay. So I can move Conan there, and that's an advantage. Then I grab a token which I can control or discard it for a benefit. If I do not move Conan, if I move it somewhere else, because maybe there are other considerations, there are other things that I want him to do, for example, I want him to support me in a battle, then if he's not going towards the target, the Conan player that decided not to help Conan complete his adventure still grabs a token, and the token is discarded. Which means that these tokens, which are either controlled, grabbed by the Conan player or by the players using game effects, or discarded, or also the timer for the game. When all these tokens are exhausted, discarded, or controlled by players, you resolve the adventure. That means if Conan is where he was trying to get, the Conan player gets to draw a token for free. Otherwise, well, nope. Either way, after the adventure is resolved, Conan is placed in the area of the original target. Another card is drawn. Now he wants to go to the western sham. So we move the target to the new location. We draw new counters. In this case, that card also gives us 4 counters. We place 4 adventure tokens there, just like before. And we continue like this. Once all 4 adventures have been resolved, the age is over. There's a procedure where players can get new troops, get points, upgrades, forts into cities. There's just a lot of things that happen. It's pretty meaty procedure there. The change from one age to the other is pretty important. At the end of that procedure, the first age is officially over. You draw 4 new adventure cards, so you repeat the procedure into the second age. When the second age is over, again, you had the procedure to change the age, and then you play the third age, which is the last one, and at the end of that age, you determine the winner. The third age, however, can end a little before all of the tokens and cards are exhausted. There's a special way of ending the game a little earlier in the third age, but still, it is during the third age that the game is over. The actions that the players can perform in the game are determined by these dice here. When no such dice are available, a player rolls the dice, and that will indicate the actions that will be available to the players. This is the common pool that all players have to share. When it is your turn, you choose one of the dice and you simply remove it from the pool and perform the action indicated by the symbol on the die. Let's start from this symbol here. This is actually a double action. It's a Conan action plus a court action. If you select this die, first you resolve the Conan action. If you are the Conan player, you can use that to move Conan to an adjacent space, and or you can use it to have Conan deposit a Raider's token in a region adjacent to where he is, or in the region where he is. Raider tokens make the region that has the token in it more unstable. The non-Conan player that is performing a Conan action can get a token, an adventure token from the track that I showed you earlier. So it is not only the Conan player that can receive adventure token. After the Conan action, with that symbol you have a court action, and that can be to draw 2 cards from the strategy deck, and the deck that can be used for a lot of reasons. These cards are very flexible resources. Or you can choose to draw a card from here and a card from your personal deck. Each player has a personal deck of abilities, advantages that can be used, and some of these are pretty powerful. Some of these, as you can see, have a symbol of this type. So if you have a card of this type, in order to play it, you need to spend a court symbol. So a court symbol, a court action can be used not to receive a new card, but to play a card in your hand that has that symbol. Military action. The military action allows you to move armies and to use them to attack. Armies are represented by army units. You can move up to 2 armies to adjacent friendly provinces, or you could add new army units to 2 friendly provinces, 1 army unit per province. Or, very common action that you will take, you can move an army to a friendly adjacent province, and then you can use an army to attack. Attacking with an army means to move the army in a neutral region that nobody controls, or an enemy-controlled region. Enemy-controlled regions have forts or cities. A city is a fort plus a tower. Or in a contested region. A contested region is a region where there is an enemy army which is campaigning to control that region, but the army or the enemy does not have control of that region yet. In short, attacking means to move your army in a region that you do not control. Then, depending on what the situation is, you will resolve the fights in different ways. Intrigue. You can use your emissaries, these pieces here, to perform devious acts, that is, to form or to destroy alliances with other kingdoms, with other provinces. With an intrigue action, you can add a new emissary to the board, you can move an emissary to a region, and then you receive the number, the value, the rating of the region in gold by removing that emissary. Or you can also move an emissary to a region that you do not control, and you can try to create an alliance. If you're successful, then you place a tower in that region. It indicates that you have an ally there. You can also move an emissary to a region that is the ally of the opponent and try to use your emissary to remove the alliance, to revert the region to neutrality. The military intrigue die can be used either as a military action or an intrigue action, and the wild die can be used as any action. When you're trying to perform aggressive actions, such as attacking another player, a neutral region, or trying to form an alliance to intrigue, you always roll these dice. These are used to resolve the type of action. When you're trying to perform an action of this type, you are called the attacker, and the player or the neutral region defending against you is the defender. As the attacker, you will roll a number of these dice that will depend on the type of action you're performing. If you're performing a military attack, then you roll a number of dice equal to the military units that you have involved, say 4. If you are the Conan player and you're fighting in a region where Conan is, and Conan is there, then he can help you out. He brings his own die. You have an extra die. If you're the Conan player and you're resolving a military action where Conan is. In an intrigue action, you receive a number of dice, which is equal to 1, plus an extra die for each adjacent region that you control or where you have an emissary. In any case, you find the number of dice that you have and you roll them. Results can be blank, that's always a failure. Axes or shields, these are usually failures, but not necessarily. The blood stain here, this is always a success. This blood stain is a success only if you're the attacker, only during an attack. This is usually a single success. It counts as 2 successes if you are the Conan player. And Conan is present in the region where you're trying to resolve that action. I said the shields and axes are usually failures. Yeah, they usually are. But that may not be the case if you previously played a strategy card. If you played a strategy card with a shield, then shields will count as successes for you. If you play shield and axes, then shields and axes will count as successes for you. However, there are restrictions. If you're playing a strategy card to improve your chances of winning a military contest, then the military contest has to be taking place in a region with the terrain indicated by the icon at the bottom of the card. So this card I can play to give me a shields or successes bonus all in this type of terrain. This one I can play in these types of terrain, and when I do so, then shields count as successes for me for that check. You count the number of successes after your attack roll. The defender will also roll, and the number of dice that are rolled by the defender depends on many circumstances, on the type of attack that you're performing, the type of action, the resources of the defender. But the key idea is that at the end, if you had more successes than the defender, you win the contest, and you get the benefit from winning that type of contest. Otherwise, you failed, and usually you have to pay a penalty. Back to the board, let's talk briefly about military actions. You may invade a country, a province which is neutral, in which case you place a miniature on the first space of the terrain track of the region in which you are, and that indicates the terrain in which the initial fight in that campaign will take place. To fight against a neutral province, you roll as the attacker a number of dice equal to the number of miniatures that you have there. Then somebody rolls a number of dice equal to the ratings of the region to represent the defense. If you win, then you can move your miniature by 1 space on this track here. If you lose, then you do not move the miniature and one of your miniatures is removed. Either way, whether you were successful or not, after an attack in a campaign, your turn usually is over, unless you choose to force march. To force march, you remove one of your miniatures and then you receive another campaign action immediately. So you can attack again and fight against the rating of the region, but as you can see, it is a very expensive option. Still, it is good to have the option of moving through a campaign by several terrains in a single turn. And the terrain in which you are is used to determine the bonuses that you can use when you're playing strategy cards. If you manage to win a battle in the last terrain of a terrain track, then you take control of that region and you build a fort there. You will have later in the turn a chance of upgrading the fort and turning it into a city by placing a tower marker on it. It may also be that 2 armies are fighting in a neutral terrain because a player is campaigning in a region and another player invades there. In this case, you have a battle between the 2 armies. The players simply roll a number of dice equal to the miniatures that they have in the fight, and the terrain in which the campaigning player is the one that is used to determine possible bonuses that apply to that fight. The loser of the die roll loses a miniature, and after that has been resolved, first the attacker and the defender have a chance to retreat from the contested region. If neither player does, you repeat the procedure, and players keep fighting until one of the two sides retreats or is completely eliminated. It may also be that a player is attacking a region which is controlled by an opponent, in which case, again, the attacker rolls a number of dice equal to the number of miniatures that he has. The defender rolls a number of dice equal to the miniatures in the region or the rating of the region, whichever is highest. The attacker is trying to reduce the number of miniatures to 0, then to win an extra fight to remove the control piece. In this case, that would be a fort. And if that happens, the terrain, the province reverts to neutral, and then the invading character, the invading player, can start campaigning in that region. So you do not win control of a region automatically by taking it from another player. There are a lot of other things in this game. There are artifacts that the players fight to control. There are objective cards that will give you extra bonuses if you complete the task described on the bonus card. But the general idea is that you're using action dice to perform actions, to expand your empire, to interact with Conan, trying to control him as much as possible, to bid for resources, and at the end of the game, if you have been better at doing all of these things and keeping all of the elements of the game together, if you've done that better than other players have, then you are the winner of the game.
I'm really glad that I got to play this game, a game that was not exactly on my radar. I'm so glad I got a chance to do so because I really like this game. I really like it. I like the core mechanics that you also have in War of the Ring and the Battle of Five Armies. I like the shared pool of dice that can be used for various things. And I really like how the pool of dice forces you to plan ahead. Because in a pool of dice you may have a lot of court actions and not many battles, for example, and sometimes you may start a military campaign or grab a military action which maybe you don't really need, but you're denying that to an opponent. You need to make sure that you're able to see what becomes available and what remains available after the action that you're taking. If you're just taking the next good action for you, then sooner or later you'll find yourself stuck with icons on the dice that you do not need and you're wasting turns, and that of course is a huge problem. I really liked that. At the same time, since the dice will bring different pools of possibilities of options from roll to roll, then you also have enough unpredictability that the game doesn't become too cerebral. It doesn't feel too like too prone to downtime and analysis paralysis, for example. Which also means that the game is surprisingly good in solitaire. I played it against other people. I played in solitaire. It works well in solitaire too because you have limited knowledge of what is going to be available next. And the fact that you can grab dice just to deny them to an opponent is one of the ways in which you can interact in this game. The game has been around for some years. It has had feedback, and one recurrent comment that I've seen is that people complain that players do not interact much. Sometimes it's more almost like you're playing multiplayer solo because I'm expanding in this area, controlling these lands, and you're expanding in your area. And maybe in a game you only have a couple of battles that will happen between players. That may be true. There are cases in which indeed players spend most of the first 2 ages just expanding, and then the third age you start having battles between players. Not many of those necessarily. In some cases you may have more. It much depends on how the players want to play. But even if you do not have many battles, I did find that there are a lot of ways in which there is indirect interaction. Denying dice to the opponent is a huge thing to
to slow down the advancement and development of the empire, so of the opponent. Adventure tokens, grabbing actions of a certain type to take a lot of adventure tokens, even if you're not the Conan player, shortens the adventures, and by manipulating time in that way, you may get advantages. For example, there may be a player that is the Conan player and really wants to do something with Conan. You prevent him from being able to activate Conan many times because you simply make the adventure last by grabbing adventure tokens, and then you have to bid for Conan again. The bid for Conan, that is again something that is very interactive. If you think that the only level of interaction in a game is me smash you, which is maybe something you can expect in a game about Conan, I'm not saying that that is beyond the pale of reality, but if you do believe that that's the only way of interacting, then this game may be disappointing. But if you see more subtle ways of interacting, and if you think that indeed there are more possible ways, I think this game gives you a lot of possibilities to do that. And this game is feels very organic. It feels fairly complex and meaty. There are many factors, many things that play into it, but I did feel that they come together very well. You have a lot of options, but you will never be able to use them all, to take them all, so you have to choose and prioritize. If you do force marches, you conquer lands quickly, but then you may find yourself without armies, without army units, because you force march a lot. You may perform big push in a neutral territory and take control, but by doing that you exhausted your resources, and now the opponent can come and take it from you. Conan, I've heard the complaints that Conan doesn't do much. Frankly, I have no idea what these comments mean. Again, unless you're disappointed that you want it to be Conan, and unless you are Conan all the time, you don't feel like the character is doing much. The card has a huge role. Bidding for Conan, being the Conan player, figuring out the battles in which Conan can show up to help you attack an opponent or to defend against an upcoming attack that you think you will have to defend against. This is huge. Conan can win a battle for you, and getting him where you want him to be, when you want him to be, is not that easy, as it very well should. If Conan was too much of an android that you can just control like you have a remote controller, that wouldn't be Conan, really. I think that there are a lot of ways in which, again, Conan can help you win the game, and you have to defend against Conan when you can control him. Complete adventures to get tokens, that is absolutely great. I just find that some of the complaints that I've heard about this game, I don't agree with them. At least I haven't had a problem with them. I haven't seen them as being major problems or even minor problems. Just factors that you can work around and you can take as challenges, as fun challenges. I guess that not everybody sees it that way, otherwise probably the game would have been more popular. But now that the game has an expansion on Kickstarter, I saw that this expansion was funded in like 75 minutes. So it turns out that this game has a following, even though it hasn't been a very vocal following. I haven't heard much about the fans of this game. They were somewhere out there. They're just coming out of the woodwork right now, and I'm glad that this game is, thanks to the Kickstarter, receiving more visibility. I'm glad that I'm giving it more visibility because I'm happy that I found out about this game. This is a game that has a lot to offer. Mechanics like you have in War of the Rings or Battle of Five Armies, but for multiplayer, which is more flexibility. Yet the game also plays well with less players, with 2 players for example. Absolutely a very good game. I'm perfectly happy with this game. I will look at the expansion. I will try the game with the expansion, but I'm not even one of these players that needs the expansion because thinks that the game needed to be fixed. Maybe the game will be even better, but even as is, this to me is a very, very good game.